Awesome. So, all right, then say, okay, cool. Everything that's cool. We're gonna go for it, right? We're gonna do some actual web scraping. So, the first thing we're gonna do is, okay, we have to remember always keeping like the DOM in mind, basically the structure of the HTML document, right? And that's going to help us allow us to parse through HTML a lot easier. We're going to web scrape based off the structure. If you don't go off the structure, you can do a lot of web scraping, but you can get lost very quickly. So it's generally a good idea to think of like where things are in the DOM and what you want to get. Okay, so I'm going to use Beautiful Soup. There's other things like Selenium and other things like you can use to scrape. I'm just going to use Beautiful Soup just because it's relatively straightforward. It's got a nice Pythonic, use and stuff like this. So we're just going to use Beautiful Soup. And I think the curriculum actually uses Beautiful Soup, if I remember this right. All right. Okay, cool. So note that I'm just going to use from BS4. This is the actual package, import Beautiful Soup. Just basically make sure we have this function called Beautiful Soup, or I should say this package. Import request, we've seen requests before. RE is just regular expression. So just a nice extra tool that we can use. Okay, so, all right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to define this function called getSoup. That means, and this is just so it's a little bit easier for me to process it, right? Versus me writing down this stuff every single time, copy and pasting. I'm going to write this getSoup URL. And then note that I'm adding this header in here, and I'll show you guys why I add this in a second. But just know this is extra information when I do the requests. Basically, it's saying, hey, it tells the website, the web server, when I ask for the page, it says, hey, I'm actually using this browser, Mozilla. And I'll show you why that I have to do that. But anyway, I get the web page, request.get, URL I pass in, this header's extra stuff, and then I'm returning the web page, which is this information right here. And then I'm also returning Beautiful Soup webpage.content HTML parser. So Beautiful Soup will actually take this web page and actually it will give you this, request will give you the page, but it's not going to be super useful. Beautiful Soup kind of makes it into this nice formatted way. Okay, so I'm going to run this guy to show you guys. So note that I'm going to get web page and Beautiful Soup. Note these are tuples, and because I can do tuples equal tuple, I have page equals soup, so that should give me the web page and then the Beautiful Soup version of that web page. Okay, everyone still follow me right now? Okay, cool. So just know you can ignore this header for right now. And I have this URL. Remember, that's just this website right here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and run this guy, and boom. All right, got the page. Basically, this is equivalent to refreshing the page. Okay, well, let's check out the page. So note that I put page.content. I can show you what page looks like by itself. You can see basically it just tells me the response. So it doesn't give me extra information, but I want the content of this page, right? So note that 200, right, means success. It means nothing bad happened, right? If I had something like a 404 error, I would say, oh, the page doesn't exist. But I want to see the content. So if I do the content now and I run this guy, ooh, you can see basically it is this huge string of just craziness, right? So this is actually the full web page, and you can see not really fun to go through, right? You could technically try to regex our way through here, but don't do this. You might as well just go ahead and try to say, hey, someone may build a package for me. So that's what Soup does. So Soup does Beautiful Soup webpage.content, uses an HTML parser, and run this guy. Much better, right? So you can see here's a little bit formatted better. It's not just one big long string. It's still not perfect, but what's cool is that it's only doing this because I haven't done anything from it. I just say, hey, I have the whole web page content in here, and I can go ahead and scrape within here. So again, not the same as this long string, but now I can actually do some interesting stuff with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and use this soup to do parse through it and find some meat and stuff like that. All right. But before I do that, is any questions about this kind of steps? Thumbs up sound pretty good. Thumbs down if you're like, okay, sounds pretty good. So I did mention about this, I almost forgot, is this header part. Note that if I do not include a header, so let's just go ahead and just comment this out. So now I just do get URL versus get URL with a header. You'll see, all right, let's see. Let's just go ahead and do page. 403. Whoa, that's different. What's 403 giving me? So let's go see what this is. It just gave me this forbidden part. So basically what's happening here is that androidpolice.com in this case, not to any fault of their own, but basically is purposely blocking anyone who does not, probably they're checking the user agent and say, hey, is this a random browser that's trying to check us. Maybe they're trying to do some like scraping, maybe they're trying to do this extra stuff. Most likely they're probably doing this just to make sure like someone's not doing something nefarious. So I can just pass this user agent to say, hey, no, this is the browser I'm using essentially, so it doesn't block me. And so if I run this now with the headers, it works. Sometimes you'll get this. Other websites, for example, if I go ahead and get rid of this guy and I do something like, let's say Google, you can see I'm perfectly fine. It just depends what the web server is doing. Okay, makes sense? Cool. All right, and let me go ahead and undo this guy, get back our soup. All right, cool. All right, let's go parse this guy. All right, so for example, what I can do with Beautiful Soup, I can just say, hey, go ahead and find all these specific tags. So I can say, go ahead, find all images, right? And I can say, all right, this is going to be a list of images. So if I go ahead and run this guy, boom, right? I already downloaded. I'm not connected to the internet anymore, basically. It already got all this stuff from the internet. And now I can say, okay, well, okay, what is this thing? So let's go ahead and open this guy up just to kind of check it out. In images, it's just a list. You can see here. It's just a list. And then each list item here, you can see it's basically an HTML tag of image. You can see this guy. Okay, cool. So it's like, okay, let's go ahead and check this out. So let me get rid of this guy. All right, so let's see, it's like, okay, how many images are there, you know? And then after that, you can check out some other stuff. So say, okay, there's 75 images that it found. Let's go ahead and find out the very first one, right? So if I go ahead and run this guy, I'm splitting up so we can see it. We can see the very first image. This is the whole tag. It's like, okay, for Beautiful Soup, it's like, okay, this is the tag. Let me just get the source because that's all I really care about is this guy. So I can pull out specifically the source right here. So you see it's very HTML, or not HTML, very Pythonic, right? It's very straightforward to use. So I run this guy and you can see, hey, there's the source. In fact, now it even returns like the URL and I can go ahead and click on this guy. Ooh, what a great image as our first image to check out. I don't know what the image that is. I don't know, it's probably this guy. It's a small image you can see. So I don't know, whatever that is. So it's like, okay, cool. Like I got the first image, right? So like, okay, now that we have all the images, for example, I could then say, make this run through all the images. And I can go and say, all right, for, let's say just I in images, right? So that basically is like this guy, images 1, and say, okay, for I in images, let's just do print I source. And you can see I have all the images now. Boom. There's a little avatar, it looks like. What else we got? There we go, got another image. So you can very quickly pull up a bunch of images and stuff like that. Now you can obviously might want to do this smaller and smaller, like you can say, well, I don't want just every image. I want very specific images. So you can look for that for specific classes. So let's go off of just finding like all the divs, for example, and then we can kind of look at how to do structure and stuff like this. And I think we'll get some time. I'll show you guys how maybe we can scrape a website that does have some data that I want to get from. Okay, let's go and check this out. So I can also do is like find all divs. I can see, for example, there's 491 divs. Ooh, a lot of divs. Okay, and so you can see here for the first few ones, I get this very first part, second part, all this stuff, and you can see very quickly if I just do inspect elements. Oops, no, page source. I don't want that. I want to be able to see it side by side. Note that this is very classic for web scraping. You might go back and forth to the website to get an idea like what the structure is. But you can see here's my first div, that tip US. Let's get rid of this guy since that doesn't matter. Tip US and then div class container, tip US container. That's probably this guy. And then inside there is probably another one, tip US container. So you can see here, it's kind of just going and finding all the different divs and stuff like that. Okay, so none of this is useful if you're trying to find like everything that's in there, but it might be more useful to look at structure. So what I can do here is check out, it's like, okay, let's go to the fourth div, or actually the fifth div. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it should be this guy, tip US header, which we'll see what this is. And what we can, let me just double check what this is. Okay, tip US header. And then say, okay, in this tip US header, there's going to be, it looks like there's, I'm trying to talk to past Victor here. Basically, there's some information within this div. So if I go back to here, just to kind of show you why I did this. I think this is it this one? It's this one right here. So this is right here is the div I'm looking at, and I want to look inside here, and there's some information in here. So I can say, okay, let's go ahead and check out the fourth div, right? Which is the tip US header. And then I want to pull out like the next siblings. So what siblings are basically are the things that are at the same level. So you can see here is that if I look closely, this tip US header, a sibling to it is at that same level. It's not within it, but it's like next to. So you can see here, my sibling here is just going to be tip US body. And sure enough, that's tip US body. Note there's just one item in here, right? Note there's some extra stuff, but it's all within here. Okay, so that's how I can find my siblings. I can also say, okay, for a div, like I kind of mentioned, what if I don't want to give every single div? I can find a specific specific attributes. So for example, let's say I want class, and you can see here, well, I'm gonna go back here. Hope I'm not making anyone too dizzy trying to jump around and stuff like this. But if I do inspect element here, and I think this is what I want, is I want div class post, right? I want to find all the posts, right? So you can see here, here's another post. There's a little ad. There we go. So here's a little post. Here's a post. So you see this class, this guy right here, like class equals, and there's post, large post, list view, all these things. It's like, hey, I want to find everything that's a post. Look, I don't want just any div. I want just the ones that are about a post. So I can say, okay, find all divs, like I did before, right here, but then say, okay, pass this dictionary, where this dictionary will say, hey, this class has post in it. So I'm going to basically pull everything that has a, pull all the divs that have post class, okay? And you can see here, instead of having 491, there's only 10 posts, which kind of makes sense. If you look at this closely, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 posts, right? So like, okay, cool. So again, do this guy right here. It's like, okay, let me go ahead and check out. Let's just check out D. And you can see here, here's the whole thing. Let's just check out the very first one. And you can see here, here's my post. And then inside this guy, okay, like let's see if there's anything else in here. I might look at, for example, let's say the links that are in here. So, oops. Oh, it's not within there. So it has to be this guy right here. But you can start then say, okay, like I have this specific part. I can go ahead and pull out this next, like the next structure that's in there and kind of dig deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay. So that's kind of like my very quick, like, hey, this is how you can do some web scraping. I think this might be useful to like, okay, so I'll just tell you, at this point, I'm gonna kind of show you another thing you can do. Like let's go ahead and just start attacking like a not attacking a website, that sounds bad, but like actually start scraping a website and just go into that. Okay, and I think that's more reasonable versus like trying to pull up specific parts. But this is more or less makes sense to people, like how we're kind of processing, we're getting the document, we're going through and looking for specific parts and saying, okay, I want this part. And then you might do something like, for example, like a for loop or kind of iterate over and over so we don't have to rewrite the code. We can say, oh, grab all of these things.